I started thinking to myself, as Channel, why don't we have a set of leading indicators? I mean, we measure the total bookings that are as a result of partners bringing us deals. But if Dali says to me tomorrow, hey, I need $20 million worth of sourced revenue from partners next quarter as part of his plan, how do I know I'm on track to get there? And what are the activities that my team needs to do to then deliver the metrics that will form the leading indicators that then get to that $20 million closed one moment? And it seems, looking back, and I think, when you look back and you reflect on these things, it seems so obvious. And I ask myself, I wish I had known this sooner in my career. Where would I be now?
Today we welcome Ghazal Asif Farhadi. She's currently the VP of Channels, Alliances and Inside Sales at Rubrik. Ghazal is recognised as a global presence within the channel community, having received many accolades, including CRN's Chief, the top 100 most powerful women in channel 2 years in a row, and Insider recognised her as one of the most powerful and influential females in the whole of Scotland. In this episode, we talk about her amazing journey of how she's had to learn and embrace the channel playbook, which aligns to the Medic playbook that we've all come to embrace and appreciate so fondly. In this episode, we go through her journey from start to finish as she starts to unpick many of the challenges that conventional playbook legacy companies face and how she's now trailblazing a best practice which is recognized as the best practice for channel globally today. This is her playbook. This episode is brought to you by Pipeline Generation AI, an account-based intelligence platform that drives high-quality engagement with your top target accounts. Welcome to Hunters and Unicorns. I'm Simon Koutis and I'm joined by my co-host, Ollie Kune.
Welcome back to the show, everyone.
And it's an absolute pleasure to be joined by Ghazal Asif Farhadi. Ghazal, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It is so fun to be here. I know we've been talking about it for months and planning, and here we are finally.
We're finally here.
Finally here.
I reckon this has got to be 6 months in the making.
This has got, you better make it a good one. 6 months in the making. You can't have all this hype and then everyone's like 6 months for that. But crap. Embarrassing for all three of us. That's 6 months waiting. Should have waited longer.
We've got some great AI tools now, so we're right. We're not even actually here. This is AI.
I'm in the US somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, by way of an introduction, you are currently Vice President of Channel Alliances and Inside Sales. So
at where?
At Rubrik. Sorry. We got there in the end. We got there.
It's a mouthful, to be fair.
It's quite a mouthful, to be fair. And I have been rehearsing that for a while because there's so much to get in there. But the truth of it, it's a huge role. It's a very, very impactful role.
Yeah.
We've spoken about some of your accolades and the impact that you've been having as a recognised global leader. And this series is very much about channel. And it's an interesting space because so many of the playbook companies get it wrong.
Yes.
There are very few that get it right.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about why so many do get it wrong?
It is an excellent question. And, now reflecting on it, I've had some clarity, having worked for many of the playbook companies now, on why we've got it wrong, including me, until you get to a point where you're like, okay, these are a couple of ingredients that are most important. I would say the number one thing is measurement of the impact. So when I joined from, I was at Cisco at the time, joined from Meraki to AppDynamics, one of the first things that Dali said to me, and I learned this from Dali, and he was so good at pushing me in this direction, was, what is the incremental contribution to the channel? Meaning, what is channel doing that we can measure, that you can point to you and your team? If they stop doing these things, it would have an impact on this business in this negative way. And up until that point, we didn't really have a good a good measure. So we aligned on, we were going to measure specifically what deals were coming into the pipeline that we did not have before, that was sourced by the partners, where partners did the motion of going into our partner portal and the rep approved that as this is a new deal and registered the deal. And it sounds very simple, but you'll be amazed at the amount of companies where the channel team is marking this is sourced by my team. Now, if you have an organization where, and this was the case at Cybereason, where the channel team is self-sourcing and self-marking deals that are sourced by them, there's always going to be an extremely high degree of skepticism and trust in those numbers. And when numbers and contribution is not trustworthy and that data is not trustworthy, you will always find yourself in this situation where the team never has enough resources. Nobody really knows what the team does. The team never gets enough investments. And in a way, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Whereas you could say with pride, this is the contribution that our team has made. If you want us to continue to contribute 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%, 60%, whatever it is in pipeline, tie it to the CRO's goals and what they care about, and then build a plan backwards on the investments that you need. I have never seen that method fail. So that's one. Have a measurement that is truly incremental contribution, and make sure it's aligned to the CRO's priorities, and make sure internally there's alignment that this is trustworthy data, and you remove all the, is this deal really sourced? Is that deal really sourced? I thought that was influenced. So that's like the biggest needle mover. The second thing that I found in general, this is with playbook companies, but where you have a organization like the channel, a group of people that are overlay, there is always so much distraction. There's, especially when you start getting to a point where there is pull in the market for what you're doing, your product, and partners start coming to you, you have to have a list of partners that you decide and you declare as an organization, these are strategic and important to us. When I joined Rubrik, we had, and we still do have, a very long tail of partners that we work with. And there's almost this feeling that more partners equals more revenue. In the same way, if you've got a sales rep that's covering a territory, it's like bigger territory equals more revenue, not necessarily. How do you first highly qualify the partners that are going to be committed to your business, highly commit to those few partners and invest in them instead of getting too broad? And if organizations nail those two things, a lot of other things fall in place.
It's really interesting because obviously it does sound so simple,
yes.
right? So what is it about the conventional channel play that didn't allow that to happen? And I suppose maybe even specifically going to some of the people that were involved in
yes.
that. What are your thoughts on that?
That is such an excellent question. I don't know why it didn't happen. If you look at some of the largest technology companies in the world, even to this day, I can tell you, because I have worked for at least two of them, they don't necessarily care about the contribution that the channel is making, because the people that run those organizations, they believe the channel is good for business. And these are mostly the large hardware companies. They've grown up in that world. They don't know any other world. Where the skepticism started to come in is with the playbook companies, where it's software. And to sell software, you don't need a distribution channel. You are selling software, you can go and sell that software directly to the end customer. That's when the skepticism comes in and the questions come in. Why do we need a reseller when I can go and do this deal directly with the end customer? They can sign my EULA or version of the EULA. And why do I need your channel partner? And I actually think this generation now of software sales leaders, they ask those questions, and it's great for channel leaders because it allows us to hold ourselves accountable to a much higher bar of excellence of this is what we're doing. Here's why channel is important. This is what you can do to engage channel, which frankly, with the leaders that I worked with previously, again, mostly from the hardware, well, excellent what they do, but you kind of need that middleman when you're shifting hardware. You don't need that when you're selling software.
It'd be really interesting. Obviously, you've spoken about DALI App Dynamics and
yes.
that being a kind of a pivotal moment.
It really was.
You obviously starting to think about viewing and assessing the channel in a very different way. Can you tell us and talk us through the journey of where it was and how you've been able to get it to where it is today and some of the learnings that you've learned in that process?
Yes, absolutely. I would love to. So I remember very distinctly at AppDynamics, I was sat in a room with the infamous Jeremy Duggan, the Ginger Prince, if you're listening to this. I learned so much from him. Both him and Dali and my now boss, Brian McCarthy, played a massive role in my evolution and how I think about the channel and channel contribution. And Jeremy was talking to the sales leaders around leading indicators. And it wasn't just everyone, here's the leading indicators. You now need to go and show me that you are driving these leading indicators on a weekly basis. And the way that he talked about it always was, is your team committed to these leading indicators? Do they understand the why versus just being compliant? And as I heard him talk to the group of sales leaders that he was addressing at that point of view, I started thinking to myself, as channel, why don't we have a set of leading indicators? I mean, we measure the total bookings that are as a result of partners bringing us deals. But if Dali says to me tomorrow, hey, I need $20 million worth of sourced revenue from partners next quarter as part of his plan, how do I know I'm on track to get there? And what are the activities that my team needs to do to then deliver the metrics that will form the leading indicators that then get to that $20 million closed one moment? And it seems, looking back, and I think, when you look back and you reflect on these things, it seems so obvious. And I ask myself, I wish I had known this sooner in my career. Where would I be now? But just having that and asking yourself and looking at sales as the gold standard and asking yourself, why don't we operate more like a sales organization? Yes, we're overlay and there's a whole element of relationships that's involved. We don't have a deal that starts and then closes and rah, we won this deal. We've grown this business now to 20 million, now 30 million, this partnership, how do we make it to 50 million, 100 million? And there's never an end to those partnerships, but operating more like a playbook sales organization where you have leading indicators at any moment in time, you can diagnose where are we missing the mark, are we at risk of making our pipeline number, has been such an important part of my evolution. And I can only thank the leaders. I mean, Jeremy Duggan, Dali, Brian McCarthy, and there's many, many others that I worked with that I learned that from.
Amazing. And can you give us some examples of what some of those leading indicators are that you're following there?
Absolutely. So when it comes to metrics, we look at deal registration. So meaning how many deal registrations has a partner submitted. Then from those deal registrations, how many of those have converted? So are partners just bringing us crap that's not qualified, or are they bringing us qualified opportunities? And that also shows you the enablement work that you're doing with the partner. Is it working? If a partner brings a deal just because they've heard backup somewhere and they submit a deal registration versus they've heard backup, they know that Veeam is in there, maybe Veeam or Commvault, one of our competition is coming up for renewal, they know who the economic buyer is, they have an idea or understanding of the champion. Have we enabled the partners to think in that way? So deal registration submitted, deal registration converted into opportunities, and then opportunities then converted into, of course, closed one is the obvious one. But then we're adding on another layer on what are the indicators? Because now what we've evolved that view, so they were originally the leading indicators. But then we start thinking, actually, are these lagging indicators? What do you need to do to get those deal registrations in the first place? And now we've evolved that V1 model from AppDynamics to actually there's a set of activities that are leading indicators, including, we call them at Rubrik, we call them Save the Datas. Save the Data is where you have a group of people, they could be at partners or customers, that come to learn about the chaos that customers go through when they're under a cyber attack. Helps them feel the pain a little bit. And out of those Save the Datas, we tend to get some pipeline, whether it's, as I said, whether it's end customer or partner facing. How many Save the Datas you need to do to try and get to a certain number of deal registrations? How many we do these, I hate calling them account mappings because they've got such a bad reputation in the industry because they're such a waste of time. But we still have to do them anyway. But we have a little bit of a method of doing account mapping sessions where, and actually Arun Dharmalingam, if he's watching this, works for me, superstar from AppDynamics. We met then and we're propensity to buy. So are there specific accounts that have a higher propensity to buy the technology that you're selling through doing some research with our sellers and the partner sellers, identify what those accounts are first, then how many activities do you need to do with those accounts to try and get to deal registrations? So depending on the partner, we will have a goal for the partner, which is revenue, then what we're now calling lagging indicators on metrics that will drive that revenue, and the leading indicators have now become the activities. So at any moment in time, we kind of know what levers we need to pull if we're behind.
It's a really interesting view, and I think a lot of what you're talking about here as well is enablement, right?
Yes.
And channel enablement.
Yes.
Now, help us understand how an organization's, like Rubrik and their enablement will help enable your channel partners.
I love this question because I get to talk about one of my favorite humans, JP Bolin. So JP Bolin runs our enablement at Rubrik, and he is former VP of sales, has had an amazing sales career, really on track to become a CRO. Brian McCarthy, also one of my favorite humans at Rubrik, my current boss. He had at the time it seemed like a crazy idea to him, but it's today you look back and you're like, how did you know that this would be a good idea? He put someone who was an incredible sales leader into head of enablement role at Rubrik. And when I first met JP and we were kind of figuring out, like, what does channel enablement look like? What we realized was that the fundamentals are the same. Meaning, if you're a great seller, you need to know how to build a champion. By the way, if you are working with a partner, you need to know how to build multiple champions and also be able to test those champions. The skill is the same. If you're a seller, you've got to be able to articulate your value in a way that is solving the pain for an end customer. By the way, in the channel, that's the most important thing. Channel partners are already very successful without your technology today. Most of the partners we work with are multiple billion-dollar organizations. Why would they add another thing to sell when they are already selling hundreds of different SKUs of hardware, software, and services? And now you're adding another SKU for their sellers to go and learn. Why would they care? So being able to articulate the value of the pain that you're solving for them, attaching the value that you bring to a customer to something that's important to the CRO's priorities. So for example, we talk a lot about cyber resilience. Many of the partners today are trying to work with their customers on help develop cyber resilience strategies. Rubrik can play an incredibly big role in that. So attaching ourselves to something that is important to the reseller or the GSI or the consulting company, having that skill set, the fundamentals are the same as if you're the seller. So JP and my team, along with just someone that we've just hired, David Habibian, again, incredible leader from Zscaler, also XApp Dynamics, feeling a little bit of a theme here, right?
Theme here.
We are taking the entire team through this. It's a development exercise where we're asking for them to pitch to us. Why would your partner care about working with Rubrik? Identify one person that you believe should be the champion. Why did you pick them as a champion? And why did they care? Like, why would a VP of sales at very large VAR care about working with Rubrik? And then how would you go and pitch them? What is the email that you'd send? And as I've been very close to developing this, it is the same. We overthink it, but it's the same fundamentals as enablement for a seller. So that's internal. And by the way, the same applies to external as well. We have to teach our teams what is the value of, let's say, Rubrik in this market to an end customer. The same teaching needs to happen to the partners, but it starts with us first. If I can't articulate it, if my team can't articulate it, then I'm not going to go ask JP's team, can you go enable our partners? That's our job. And I think a lot of companies and also channel leaders get this wrong, and I will debate this all day long, where you put enablement on, we need a channel enablement guy or gal, like we need someone driving channel enablement, but it's like, you're the one that's in the field with the partners every single day. There's nobody that should know the pitch, what you do, what you sell, the pains you solve, some solid customer stories better than your own team. Don't try and outsource enablement. It doesn't work.
Thanks to our sponsor, Pipeline Generation AI, the platform that researches your top accounts, creates insights and assets to help you engage more effectively. Elevate your conversations and transform your pipeline with Pipeline Generation AI today. I just want to pull on one of those threads because I think it's really, really important what you're saying there, because Dali, you said, was very influential. He really got it, and you can see the impact it had both at AppD and Zscaler. But I think the theme here is that there has to be buy-in from the whole organization.
Absolutely.
Rather than a bolt-on, something which is just added on. I think most vendors want they want the channel. They want the channel to do it. But are they willing to commit? And I think the central... What can you tell us about the impact and the importance of having a kind of a centralized strategy which is holistic around the channel?
Oh, it is incredibly important. And I'll say what I said at the start, which is it has to align to something that your CRO cares about. So a lot of the times what will happen is you'll have channel leaders that will say, I want to build these relationships because these relationships are going to help us get deeper into existing customers and help us expand in existing customers. But the CRO is sitting there thinking, our expansion happens anyway. Like, I don't need you as a channel. And by the way, if you drive it and it happens organically, fantastic. But that's not what I need you driving. I need you driving new logo lands. And sometimes that causes some friction because you'll have the CRO that's saying, new logo, like Brian McCarthy, new logo, go drive new logo. Then you'll have the team that's working with partners, and partners are rightly saying, we can do so much more than drive new logos. We can do services implementation. We can drive managed services. We can do expands. We can offer all these consulting services. We can do so much. Like, why are you just turning to us for new logo? But this is where it's really on the channel leader to put together a strategy that says, right now we're going to focus on doing what the business needs to do, which is land those new logos and build an install base within the partners. Step 2 then is, what is all the value you can create? And by that point, you've built the credibility to go and educate. Sometimes you have to go and educate internally the CRO, the CEO, everyone that sits around the executive staff on, by the way, you asked us to deliver new logos. We deliver new logos. We're contributing 30%. It has to be a meaningful number. 30%, 40% of your new logo revenue. At Rubrik, we're well above 50% contribution to new logo revenue in terms of pipeline generated and closed. That then gives me permission to go to Brian and Bipul, our CEO co-founder, and an amazing visionary individual, and say, our partners can do more than just generate new logo. Now we have to look at how can our partners expand the logos that we've landed through other workloads. How can I go to some of our largest GSIs and talk about implementation services and advanced services and how do we go build that out? But you have to be honest with yourself and say, are they going to care about all of that stuff in year one?
Yeah.
No, they're not. They're not. And this is what a leader then, a channel leader, has to also help their team understand. We're on a journey. Sometimes it could feel very transactional when, all I'm looking at is new logos. All I'm looking at is pipeline. And I think I have to be conscious and aware of letting the team know we're on a journey. Year 1 this is what it's going to be about. By the way, it's amazing because in year 2, we get to do all this other stuff on expanding on the logos that we're landing, but that's where we have to start. And maybe the priority is something else, but that comes down to your CRO and aligning with the CRO to begin with.
Yeah.
You've obviously had a lot of success, a lot of impact. We spoke about some of those accolades, but why do you think you've personally been able to thrive in this environment? How do you think you've been really able to elevate yourself to where you are and the influence you're having and the impact you're having?
I would say it's my Scottish accent and the fact that I'm so stylish. Isn't that so obvious? How many other Pakistani women do you know that have this accent and that have this hair? I mean,
well, that's true. You are going to
definitely unique. That is to say.
And by far the most glamorous guest we've had on the show.
We'll take it. What can I say? We'll take it. I would say my personal success. There's a couple of reasons. And I'm not going to give you the BS answer of, it's people that have helped me, because there are actually people that have helped me and I will talk about them. In fact, let's start there. People that have helped me. I think that is a big contributor to my success. So let me give you a couple of very concrete examples. When I was at Meraki, my boss there, Pete Atkin, he really took a chance on me to give me my first leadership role. Now, I help myself because I've always been committed to being excellent at what I do. And I think it starts there first. If you commit to being excellent at what you do, whether you're a sales engineer, whether you're a AE, a rep, whether you're a first line leader, there's no magic formula to that. You have to be great at what you do. And you have to validate that you're good at what you do. Some people think that they're brilliant, but actually they're crap. And so go speak to your manager, go do a bit of an audit of how you're doing, other than the numbers. How are you doing? What is your boss and your boss's perception? So I knew I was doing a good job because Pete, my manager at the time, he was very forthcoming with, these are some areas that you're doing really well in. Here's what you need to work on. And then he's the one that helped me land my first leadership role. And I think your first leadership role is really important, that you have someone that's your champion, because you're going to F up a lot, which I did many, many times. But I know that Pete had my back always and helped me grow in my role as a first line leader for the first time. So Pete was amazing. And then at App Dynamics, I'd say both Dali and Jeremy helped a lot and shaped my thinking on, okay, I know some of the basics of channels well, but if someone said to me, go build a plan where you know you can deliver X amount of revenue with the resources that you have today, the easy answer is not just give me more headcount, with the resources that you have today, help them be more productive, and it should be rolling into a number, I wouldn't have a Scooby-Doo how to do it. So it's really Jeremy and Dali that helped me think through that. And then the person that's helped me elevate my career now is Brian McCarthy, because Brian McCarthy is like, okay, you've kind of nailed this channel alliances stuff. Everyone's got area of growth, but I want you to take on more work. And he's taken now a shot at me of running SDR and mid-market sales that forms the inside sales. So I'd say there's been a consistent, for the last at least 10 years, I feel like I've had sponsors and champions of mine, which as anyone in the workplace is important, but especially as a minority, especially as a woman, I have found has been transformational for me. But I will also say I have helped myself, and I always give this advice to everyone, help yourself first by being great at what you do. You can't sit there and I can't go and ask a Jeremy or a Dali or a Pete Atkin, who was my first boss, Brian McCarthy, hey, I'm looking to expand my scope. I want to take on more work. I want to, learn and grow my skills outside of what is my bread and butter. If I'm crap at what I do, like nobody really wants to have that conversation if you yourself are not committed to being excellent at what you do. And I've put a lot of time and effort into it. I travel a lot. I mean, we were laughing beforehand. I travel a lot. I try and be in the field, try and be close to the team and understand what's going on. That sacrifice that I've made. Growing up, there's many times my friends would be out and about. My first job ever, my friends would be out partying and I would be reading reports of what does a financial report look like and what do all these numbers mean as a 21-year-old instead of going out and partying. And there's still today, I would rather forego and I'm trying to find a better work-life. Don't ask me any work-life balance questions, by the way. Please, I'm letting you know ahead of time. Don't ask me them because I'm going to give a terrible answer.
This is about as fun as it gets, isn't it?
It's true. This is all the fun that it gets, exactly. But I will always make sacrifices. And sometimes, unfortunately, it is at the expense of my own personal life because deep down, I want to be the best. And that's one thing that I have learned over time, that it's quite a disappointing reality. Not everyone wants to be the best. And some people say, I want to be excellent, but they're not willing to put in the work. And when you realize that, you realize actually you're somebody that's special. If you want to be excellent at what you do, but you're willing to put in the sacrifices needed to get there, no one has to motivate you to do it. You don't need a pep talk from your manager or your buddy or your boss's boss. And you're not, as Jeremy used to put it, compliant because someone says. It's just something that comes from within. You've got something special because a lot of people don't have that.
When it comes to obviously talent, when we look around everything talent orientated with you, from the Gardner Johnsons, from the Tom Hendersons to the David Bibians,
Arun Dharmalingam. Do you want to try and pronounce his surname?
No, I'm allowing you to say that one. where do you think, because there has been this disconnect with talent and Channel, right? Channel was always seen as the place where failed salespeople go, people that understand the product, they're good people, they can't quite cut it in sales.
Nice.
Culturally,
good
they
relationship
fit.
builder.
Good relationships, all this sort of thing,
Yes.
and it's kind of that stigma attached to legacy Channel, but actually now it's really starting to change. And people like yourself, people like Tom Henderson, people like some of those other names that I've mentioned are really starting to influence, really high performing individuals to now think about a career in Channel. Why is that? Is that, in your opinion, that's the question, why is that?
I think when you look at the typical profile of people that were good in the Channel, the truth and the reality is, in today's world, with the way that myself or an Arun Dharmalingam or a Gardner Johnson or a Tom Henderson or a David Habibi and any of these A+ players, they would likely struggle to get someone that's been doing the same channel role, a channel lifer at a big hardware company. No disrespect to anybody that's listening to this that's one of those people. If you've built your life on that, amazing, good for you. But that profile of person will not thrive, let alone survive in our world today, where we have a very high degree of accountability for leading indicators, for activities, where almost like everything that you do, we have visibility of in the best possible way so we can develop and coach as well. But that type of person will struggle. They will really struggle. And that's why when we started to, and really a lot of this started at App Dynamics, when we decided that, look, in the way that the sales organization has a set of metrics that they hold themselves accountable, we're going to have those metrics. The way that they have a playbook, we're going to have a playbook. We also decided that it's unlikely that someone that has spent 20 years in the Channel in a hardware company, that is a profile that's going to survive. Instead, what we wanted were people that were hungry, that were driven, that were maybe on their first or their second sales gig, and they get to exercise that same muscle of driving a number, winning deals, building champions, building a plan, driving leading indicators. They get to do all of that same stuff, but in the Channel. So I have a soft spot for hiring people that have done a sales role, that have carried a bag. I mean, Arun himself, he's one of the greatest channel leaders. He was a sales leader. He was a sales leader at Palo Alto before he moved into the Channel. And this is one thing that I'm finding. I truly believe the future of channel leaders after like my generation will be sales leaders, because they'll have learned enough from what we're trying to do that they will then take even more sales discipline and sales rigor into the Channel and the old school way of Channel, where it's all just about relationship building and no one's really looking at the numbers. The numbers look great. Of course the numbers are going to look great. If you're in a company that's growing and bookings are going through your partners, those bookings are going to grow. But what have you done to contribute? I think it's going to continue to evolve rapidly.
How do we get the message out there to direct sellers that, what a career opportunity can look like this and why it could be an advantage to join a Channel team?
I think it really comes down to what work are you doing that makes you feel alive? Because I can do the best channel pitch in the world, but it really comes down to what your strengths are. If you're someone that is already a successful seller and you want to expand your selling skills to relationships that are beyond one or two deals. Some of these relationships end up being tens of millions of dollars, and you start making a bigger impact, not just on your territory, but to the company itself. I mean, if you think about it, even if you are a majors rep and you carry $1 million, $2 million quota, whatever your number is, imagine now you can bring more of those deals into the majors team. And when you activate some of these partners, it's not $1 or $2 million deals. You're talking $5 million deals, 10, especially with some of the large system integrators. You talk about an Accenture, a Deloitte. They're working, their smallest deals are multi-million-dollar deals. Imagine you can take some of all of the great skills that you've developed in selling to an end customer, and you go and activate a Deloitte or an Accenture. You're now talking about building a relationship that should be minimum $100 million ACV and beyond. And think about that impact that you're making on the company that you're working for. It's huge.
Yeah.
And the thing is that I think there is a buzz to having the sort of quarter, I need to hit my quota, I need to have my quota every single quarter. But at some point, I would imagine if you're a seller, you're going to be like, is this my life? And for many sellers, it is, and it's excellent. They're brilliant at it.
Yeah.
But what if you have some of that same drive every quarter, because we have a quarter number as well, but it's about a much bigger picture. It's about what impact can you make on a relationship that is beyond the quarter, that's going to outlive you and the company that you're in. And that's why if you're a majors rep and you want to come to an amazing channel company and still have a lot of the selling skills, come talk to me.
Because how does that tie relative to commission and earning potential, right?
Great
Account
question.
executives, we know there's, $1 million W1, W2s, W1s, whatever they may be,
Yes.
but W2s. But, is there still that sort of level of earnings in channel?
I have to be honest here. So I have seen people, individual contributors, make phenomenal money. The difference is that it is much more predictable. You may be a great seller and one year you'll make $1 million, but the next year, for many, many reasons, you might just make your OTE, but then the following year after that, you'll make $1 million again. And unless you're in like the top 1%, 2%, 3%, there will always be a little bit of, and sometimes a lot of fluctuations between your earnings. With channel, you don't necessarily have the earning potential to go as far as $1 million, but you know that you can have a very good, especially within software sales, a very good, very steady income and not as much of the peaks and troughs.
Okay. Do you think that needs to change? To attract more? Is there a way of making that change, or is it tough?
I do. I think there is a way of making it change if you can have the channel, maybe even carry a very small, discrete quota. The problem is it's hard to justify why an overlay organization that it covers many times dozens, hundreds, if not some companies really, really big, thousands of reps, have the same comp plan as a seller that's not going to make their OTE. They might walk away with zero commissions if they don't go and sell something, because for that seller, it is on them to go and sell and the buck stops at them. For channel, we cover usually, one of my channel reps covers 12 to 15 sellers. So out of the 12 to 15 sellers, at least half of them are going to make a minimum let's say 70%. I would assume so. So it's hard for me to say, well, channel has to have the same upside, because I don't think we carry the same risk. And I know a lot of channel people listening to this, and a lot of channel leaders won't agree with it, but that is the truth. As an overlay organization, you're not carrying the same level of risk. And therefore, I do think the fact that you're not carrying the same level of risk should be baked into the comp plan. And the same way, our comp plans are different. Most comp plans that I've seen in most organizations, they're not a 50-50. Your base is a little bit higher. It's a 60-40. So you have a little bit more of that predictability as well. At some moment in time, if a channel and organization and the sales skills within the organizations get so close to a sales team that you can carry a number that nobody else is carrying, and you're carrying yourself and you're saying, for this partner, I myself am going to go to the selling and I'm going to close X amount of deals, and you're in a closing role, and then it's the same comp plan. Absolutely. Okay. But at some point, the unit economics, they don't work out when you've got an overlay team being paid the same as a sales team. Just doesn't work out.
Yeah. Makes complete sense. Simon.
And if anyone wants to disagree with me, you can debate with me, you can, absolutely. But this is my point of view. This particular thing, I've talked about this a lot with many leaders. It's not changing.
It's an interesting one. And I think, it's probably one for, again, having spoken to candidates, recruiting for organizations within the playbook, there is that. It's like, yes, I can see the excitement. And,
Yes.
and normally it's kind of, yes, I'm money motivated, but where it really stands out for me is the career growth opportunity.
Yes.
Because tends to be smaller parts of the organization, career progression, leadership opportunities, etc. There's a lot more opportunity within channel than there is in the direct selling sales part of the organization. So normally it's, if that's higher up on your agenda
Yes.
rather than money,
Yes.
it tends to be that's the...
Honestly, if what drives you in the morning and what gives you joy is the idea of being 100% in control of your own destiny. And if you're extremely money motivated and all you care about is finance and earning as much money as you can, you should stick to sales. You really should stick to sales. I would hate to bring someone over and then every quarter they're like, I'm not earning enough. I'm not earning. Like, and by the way, I have people like that I've talked to myself that are in channel. They're like, I want to earn more money. Like, they've done 120, 130%. And they're like, if I was in sales, I would have made X amount more. It's like, well, then you should be in sales.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if that's what really is the thing that brings you that energy and joy, go align that, go build a skill set in sales, go learn how to do that, and then go and do it.
Yeah. I'm really intrigued with the answer to your question, though, Simon.
So I suppose, just reflecting on what you've just said there, I think obviously sellers need to be a lot more well-rounded now. And I want to talk about the importance of the hyperscalers because they are changing the landscape. So I want to ask you two questions. First of all, what impact are they having and why is it, and how is it changing sales and the skills that are required and the focus that's required within I'd be really interested to understand that.
So look, the hyperscalers have caused massive disruption within the partner ecosystem. You have some resellers that have figured out a way of how do you work with the hyperscalers, and some of the hyperscalers, especially AWS, have figured out a way for resellers to be compensated on deals that go down the marketplace route, which I think is really, really good. But many times, many resellers, they're still very nervous. And even today, they're still very nervous because there's transactions that would have been happening on their books that are happening through the hyperscalers, through the AWS marketplace, through a Microsoft marketplace. But the reality is that's not going away. And the ones that are smart will figure out a way to work with vendors like ourselves and say, what role can we continue to play in your go-to-market? Meanwhile, these other hyperscalers, they're going to continue to coexist. If you are a seller, I would say the most important thing you can do is to figure out what can you leverage when. So, for example, if you're working with an extremely large value-added reseller and the value-added reseller introduced you to a customer and you're working on that deal and a lead as a result of being introduced to that customer, then that customer might say, hey, listen, I've got credits to burn down. I want to now go burn them down through the marketplace, or I want to go burn them down any of the marketplaces, Microsoft or AWS. It's your responsibility as a seller to go and reduce the friction in that deal as soon as you can. Because at the end of the day, you're not to blame that the customer's made that decision. You might not win the deal unless the customer's able to do that. But now you have the knowledge that that is a route that it's going down. I've seen sellers wait until the last minute and then they go tell the partner, hey partner, really sorry, customer's made this decision. There's nothing I can do. And then that escalation comes in my desk. Then I'm the one that has to deal with the angry rep and the angry partner all the time. So be transparent. I think there's a lot to be said about building trust with any partner and being transparent and building the skill set of understanding, okay, I can see this deal is going down the route of one of the hyperscalers. It's going to go through one of the marketplaces. Let me be respectful for the rep that bought me in and figure out a way to try and make them whole. And I think if all reps started doing that, we would see much less friction in the channel and more partners embracing the hyperscalers, because now they're like, look, everyone's transparent. This is all good for us at the end of the day. If you can figure out a way to make partners whole, which we at Rubrik do, even if it goes down one of the marketplaces, the partners will continue to lean in as well and take away some of that friction.
That's really great insight. Do you have a hypothesis of what what the channel landscape is going to look like in the future?
I think that hardware margins, they've already been squeezed massively over the last decade. So most channel organizations, most value-added resellers are no longer really looking at their hardware margins anymore for profitability, because the reality is even if they make, in some cases, 5 points on the hardware, that's considered to be a good deal. Wow. So I think hardware margins are going to continue to be squeezed because anyone can sell hardware. It's like commoditized. Anyone can go and sell hardware. And I think most value-added resellers are going to be competing in a space that kind of overlaps with the system integrators that are extremely services heavy. Because as a customer, customers are more educated now than they were a decade ago. Customers will go online and many times do a lot of their own research. Then as a channel partner, you have to figure out what is your unique value add to that customer. Is there something you can offer in terms of a service for them, in terms of doing some live technology POC, or something that will make that customer think they're doing more than just transacting paper, or a model in which you're doing something special around financial agreements, or if the customer wants to buy, in the case of a customer wants to buy Rubrik, we've got many of our partners saying, you want to consume Rubrik, you can consume it on a monthly basis as a managed service. So I think VARs will need to shift from being heavy transactional dependent. I think that in 10 years from now, there will only be a handful of very large scale transactional VARs because a lot of consolidation will happen. It is already happening today. And what will be left is partners that are extremely competent in understanding technology and services to go drive the technology and bring different technologies together. I think the world of transactional, I need this widget, can you quote me? I think that world is dying pretty rapidly.
What about the sales motion and how you see internally within software organization, and how the involvement of a channel organization within that organization is going to evolve?
I think it's evolving now. Yeah. Like if you look at the work that certainly the group of people that we've talked about have done since AppDynamics, when you look at the process that we use, the leading indicators that we look at, the talent profile that we look at, it's much more like a software sales organization than it is a typical overlay channel relationship organization. And I think it's going to move more in that direction. I think today we piloted this at AppDynamics, where in sales you have, the way to qualify is MEDDIC or MEDDPICC or some version of that. In channel, we tried to build our version of that called BEPIC. I think we overcomplicated it a little bit. But I think there'll be some version of a channel playbook that great channel companies or great software companies that are playbook companies will also run, and that will be fairly consistent across the board. In the same way, I know that if we hire sellers and we're hiring them from AppDynamics, I know that they're going to immediately come in and they're going to talk the language. They're going to know what an EB is. They're going to know what a champion is. They're going to know what MEDDIC or MEDDPICC is. They're going to know what leading indicators are. I think that will translate to the channel. And it's happening now. Yeah. It's happening now. By the time I retire, it will have happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Tom Henderson was talking quite a lot about that in the previous session that we had with him. Yes. You spoke about, typically a sourced and closed a good channel model could be between 30 to 35%. Rubrik, you've now got it to plus 50%. Yes. Do you think that will continue to grow? Do you think there's an opportunity to even get to 100% all channel, or is that a stupid question?
No, I think it's an excellent question. It's one that we've been thinking about a lot at Rubrik, where if we look at our new logo revenue, 50%, over 50%, some quarters it's more than that, is sourced by our partners. And so me, Brian McCarthy, Jesse, Izzy, who are VP of Americas, VP of International, and then Brian, we know, is the CRO. We look at what is the right mix. And ultimately what we've landed at for now, and we may change this, is that if you are an extremely strong sales organization, half of your pipeline should come from your own personal PG efforts, because that is what you're in control of. We will never have enough marketing dollars for marketing to go generate enough leads. We will never have enough SDRs to go and generate leads. We'll never have enough resources in the channel to go help generate leads. But at least 50% of your destiny and doing PG should be within your control. So I think the ideal mix, if I was to project what it looks like, I think it would be 50% is your own personal effort, driving PG, building that skill set, getting really, really good at it. So even if none of the marketing and channel exists, dies tomorrow, at least you know 50% of your pipeline is going to come through. And then the other 50% should be a mix between channel and marketing efforts. And I think that is the right balance. The other reason why that's really, really important is it creates a really nice give-get with partners. When you go to partners, and sounds a little counterproductive, but when a rep asks me, what can I do to engage with partners and what can I do? And it sounds so like it's such a contradiction, but I do say, go do your own personal PG. Why? Because if you go do your own PG, you go and find and build and drive an opportunity, you now have leverage to take that to a partner and say, hey, listen, I have this opportunity. I did XYZ research. I was able to figure out this organization has this pain. Here's how my technology and what I do uniquely solves that pain. I would love to work with you on this opportunity. Is this a customer of yours? And the partner's like, oh yeah. And you have to find the right partner and the right rep. I actually do work with them. Let's work on this opportunity together. Tell me what you know about the economic buyer. Here's who I think is the champion, who I believe, and I've been testing. What else have they bought? What strategic initiatives do you know that's important? Now you've created that leverage because you have currency that you can use, which is your currency to go and get something from the partner. And when you're doing that deal together and they do an excellent job at contributing to the deal and you win it together, now you've got a relationship that you can now look at their other accounts. Okay, now that we won this deal together, what are some other accounts that you are working on that we can partner together? And by the way, if they're not accounts that you cover, now you have the leverage to go take that to one of your peers. It's such a simple thing, but it's so important. You have to create that leverage with partners. Now, let's take the extreme scenario. If my team at Rubrik, we were so excellent and so brilliant, and let's say our sales team decided we're not going to do PG anymore. The channel is still, Ghazal's team is crushing it. 100% of our pipeline is coming from the channel. We take all of that, 100% come from partners, and channel partners are now like, we're sitting down with their executives at business reviews and they're like, oh, we closed this business. Oh, we closed 50 million together. But wait a second, 50 million was all our efforts. What did you bring to the table? We stopped doing PG. Whoops, sorry about that. So I think that give-get in the partner world is extremely important. And this is why I think a lot of channel people and channel leaders think personal PG and channel, that they are a friction point. But if you have the right mindset and you think about it in the way that is your give, so you can get, it is actually the biggest leverage that you as a sales organization can build.
So you hire specifically on ICE criteria, right? Intelligence, characteristics, coachability, last but not least, but the experience piece. Now, when you're, and so you hire people that are ready to embrace and learn all these learnings of Medic and everything else. You don't have that same control within the channel, right? So when you go and enable, are they embracing it, and what's in it for them to embrace?
That's what really comes down to it, right? It's about you showing the partner what's in it for them.
Yeah.
Like the 3 whys again, like all the principles that apply to sales, the 3 whys apply to the partner. If you at this moment in time can't answer, why should this partner do anything? They're extremely successful today. Like, why would they change you for another partner or add you as another partner? Why would they need to do it with you, specifically you as a company? And what is the urgency? Like, why would you need to do it now? Then the truth is, why would they bother?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of this comes back to, for a partner to embrace you as an organization, especially when you're much smaller and they're often 10, 15 times bigger, you've got to show relevance to something that's very important to them now and very important to something that they're driving in the future.
Yeah.
It could be a priority. It could be an initiative. One easy one that we always latch onto is growth. Which VP of sales or CRO within a partner does not want growth? Every single one is looking for growth. Every single one is looking to drive additional value to their customers. If you can latch on to one or two of their priorities and show them this is how we're going to help you drive those priorities and enable your team to be able to be fluent in having that conversation, doing the research, pitching to them, presenting to them, you're on to a winner.
And I suppose that's how you then qualify the true partners that you're going to be working with, right?
Absolutely, because it's not always a perfect marriage, right? Like you will have some partners that they really are enthusiastic about working with you. They're so into it. But then you realize very quickly that, they might be extremely small. They may only have a very small install base of customers. Not that you don't want to work with them, but at this moment in time, they cannot be your number one priority. You might have a partner that is opposite, extremely large scale, has tens of thousands of customers, but they may not be driving an initiative around, let's say for us, if they're not driving something around cyber resilience or understand the importance of cyber resilience, at this moment in time, we're probably not a good fit because we're not in the game of, vending machine, here's a widget and, here's the cheapest thing that, you're buying this and we'll sell you this and we'll sell it at a cheap price and then we're good to go. So I think that qualification is extremely important. And then you have your list and then you don't move off that list for at least a year. A lot of the times there's temptation of, it's not quite working out, let's change the list. And then you have this evolving list of partners, which is disastrous. It's not good for your team. It's not good for the partners. It's just not good for business. You stay committed, you stay course, you have a plan, you deliver on it, you problem solve. Might not always be in the timelines that you want, but you don't shift your partners. You stay loyal and demand that loyalty back.
Amazing.
I think actually it's a very excellent place to reflect on what we've spoken about, because I think where we've just landed is what the disconnect was historically with the kind of the whole Medic playbook was that it was very much about these are the principles, these are the guardrails, where we're maniacally focused on direct selling. And ironically, it's those same principles that are applied within the channel that actually give you success. And yet, what stops it working is if the channel is embraced as an afterthought.
Yes.
There is a huge disconnect.
Yes.
And in order for it to work, it's not because the principles of the playbook don't work. It's because you have to have a central strategy to create the framework for them to be able to coexist.
Absolutely.
And that needs sponsorship right from the top and throughout the organization, where it's not just a bolt-on, it's not just an afterthought, but it's actually a dedicated, well-rounded coexistence.
Absolutely. And part of the plan.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I think this is probably why CROs are probably embracing it now, because they feel they've got the control where historically they didn't maybe have that control.
Yeah. It's been fantastic having you on the show. Thank you so much. It's been great for you to bring all your energy, all your Scottish charm with you all the way from you're global
Scotland,
now.
Yes, all the way from Peg the country. Exactly.
You're a global star now. So yeah, we're certainly in awe of your presence. So thank you so much for having me.
It's been awesome. Thank you so much.
It really has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. So to all our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in today. Please do subscribe to our various channels on iTunes, Spotify and YouTube. It's really important that we get our subscription levels higher. I think somewhere in the region about 90% of our viewers aren't subscribing. So please, if we can ask you to do anything and to help us continue to create some great content, please do subscribe to our various channels. But we look forward to welcoming you back for another session very soon. Thank you and goodbye.